Hi there, and welcome to the Home Studio Rescue here on YouTube. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be talking about what is universal audio and UAD plugins and whether or not you should care. We're going to talk a little bit about the history, and I'm just going to try to explain their platform as best I can. And if you get any value out of this video, please like and subscribe. Also, if you are building your own home studio or trying to learn how to mix or record, shoot me an email at homestudiorescue@gmail.com. I do coaching and consulting, and I'd love to do a free 30-minute Zoom call just to talk about what you're going through. So with that said, Universal Audio started in 1958. They made recording consoles. They're very famous for creating the 1176 compressor, the LA2A. These are hardware compressors. I'll show you a picture of the LA2A here. This is what was in studios and still is since the 60s. So now they make software versions of that compressor, and that's what they're doing here on the Universal Audio website. You can get their plugins, but you have to have either one of their Apollo audio interfaces or a UAD Satellite or DSP accelerator, as it says here. This is kind of the gatekeeper. You can't get these plugins unless you have one of these devices, and they are expensive. But one of the cool parts about their interfaces is that you can record with their plugins in real time. So right now, I have an actual compressor sitting in a rack. It's called a distressor, and the thing is about $1,400, and I have one of them. Whenever someone comes over here to sing, I record them through that, but if I wanted to mix through that, I could use it on one channel. But there's a distressor plugin. With that plugin, I could have that across as many channels as my DSP can handle. Like they come with chips, and so you can get a solo, like right here. That's one chip. You can get a duo for 2 or a quad for 4. And then they have these satellites. So even a quad isn't a lot. Like, it depends on the plugins. Each plugin that you buy has a different load on the processing power that's built into the interfaces or to the satellite. And so if you go and buy a solo, you're not going to get a lot out of that. You might get 4 or 5 plugins, and then you're out, that you're going to exceed the limit. And so what happens is people will buy a solo or a duo, and then they end up having to go and buy a quad satellite or an octo, an 8-chip satellite, so they can use all the plugins they want. That's one of the downsides of Universal Audio, is just that you're constantly battling the DSP exceeded battle. Like, you run out of DSP power and you have to manage that stuff. And so you end up spending more money. The other thing is that the newer plugins, they seem to be a lot more heavy on your chips. So you run out of processing power. It's just a part of the game. When you buy one of these devices, chances are you're probably going to have to pony up for one of these as well. So it can get expensive real quick. And if you're just starting out, you don't need this. We're at the should you care about this stuff? The answer really is no. It's more about your budget and how you want to have a workflow. If you're just recording guitars or keyboards or whatever, if you're not doing vocals, then I don't really feel like you need one of these interfaces. It's nice to have their plugins, and they're great tools and all that. And yes, the pros use them and all that stuff, but there's so many different plugin companies out there. There's so much good stuff out there. You don't need to just buy into this, what I call it is the country club of plugins. This is an entry fee into this universe here, and you don't have to do that. For $1,300, you could have so many plugins. It's limitless. There's a lot of places you can invest that money. So unless you're doing vocals, like for doing vocals, and you want to have a compressor and you want to use a plugin, this is kind of a cheaper path than buying, like I have a $1,400 distressor, and I have a preamp that cost me like $700, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And if you want a compressor on the way in, then these UAD interfaces are really cool for that. But otherwise, if you don't need that, you could just start with anything under $500. I mean, for $200, if you need 2 channels, there are so many options between $200 and $300. I would start there. And if you're just starting out, which I imagine if you're watching this video, you are, hopefully, I would just go with a cheaper option, unless you want to have compression on the way in and you want to get into all that. I do think it's a good learning tool as well. I mean, plugins are a great way to learn about how to use a compressor and EQ, all that stuff, and maybe get to the point where if you wanted to have hardware, which is another thing I don't really recommend. But at this point, if you're just starting out, you don't need this stuff. I wouldn't worry about it. It's good to be educated on it and kind of know what's going on. But outside of that, I think you can do well with just a regular audio interface. And there's a lot of ways to skin the cat as far as getting a great sound. And really, that's all that matters. These tools, all this stuff, it's more about getting a sound that is good on the way in. Like if it's a guitar tone or a vocalist or keyboards or whatever it is, this stuff, it can help. And like a compressor could definitely help a vocalist, but it's not going to make or break your recording. So if you got any value out of this video, please like and subscribe. And if you need any help with your studio, if you just have a question, shoot me an email at homestudiorescue@gmail.com, or let's just set up a Zoom call and we can talk about your setup. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.